Despite him being presented as the brains of the group, Asphalt did make some poor choices, especially ones involving the Queen. Hello, welcome to another book review. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I will be reviewing the YA fantasy book, Animalia, Luminary, by Zenabab Sorkart. In case you're interested in buying this book afterward, content warnings are animal injury/death, blood, murder, nightmares, mentions of mild torture, and head trauma. I will start with the overall plot, then writing, world building, and finally the characters. This review will be spoiler free until between these timestamps, so if you want to avoid spoilers, I recommend skipping over that section. Also, I must note that apparently the series is getting rebooted as a comic, so I don't know if there will be a book 3. According to the site, things are being changed, including the themes, so we'll see. Either way, I wish the author the best of luck in whatever format she chooses. Now that those notes are out of the way, let's begin. And now a brief word from our sponsor, me. Yes, this is a self-advertisement. Recently, I have decided to open my Safe for Work art commissions indefinitely. I can draw people, animals, anthros, and full scenes. If you want to order a commission from me, more examples and pricing can be found in the description under the Other Places to Find Me section. As a second announcement, for those who don't know, at my shop you can find LGBT+ merch, gift for writers, and cute animal designs. They are all available on stickers, shirts, and much, much more. The link is also in the same section below. Thank you for listening, and back to the review. According to the back of the book, the plot is as follows. Asphalt and his companions have arrived in Rether, but have not been welcomed with open paws. With the Queen dead set on killing him, he is saved by an opportunity. In exchange for being welcomed in Rether, he must solve a murder case in the palace. Guided by Pyrite, a secretive historian, Asphalt uncovers the many mysteries of Rether. Perils and horrifying revelations cover his path to end the war and save Animalia. Yet, as if saving the world wasn't hard enough, he finds that he must save himself as well. In terms of the story, it started out well enough. Asphalt, Willow, and Marula held a funeral for Thistle and buried her in the mountains. After a confrontation with the Queen, Marula managed to escape with the key, leaving Asphalt and Willow behind. It was tense that the Queen wanted to kill Asphalt, given that he had no further use to her, but thankfully the owl was saved by Pyrite, suggesting he could help solve the recent murder spree. After Asphalt had been assigned to work on the murder case, however, that's where the plot began to fumble. Usually in mysteries, the reader gets to discover and put together clues along with the detective. In Luminary, however, that is not the case, as Asphalt has very little resources to work with, and he tended to put 2 and 2 together quickly. Sure, Asphalt not having much to work with made the stakes higher, but it also made it feel like he was making assumptions and that there were too many leaps in logic. Besides the mystery element, the war plot was also a tad confusing. Mind you, I'm not big on fictional politics, so a lot of it went over my head in general. Queen Cassiopeia inviting another neighboring royal to a party in the palace in order to strengthen their alliance was great. When it came to the two queens making negotiations, along with increasing taxes for importing goods. That made me feel lost, however. Criticisms aside, the author did manage to balance the plot lines of the mystery, war, and Asphalt's arc well enough. Furthermore, I did enjoy getting to explore the castle with Asphalt, along with the kingdom itself. For the writing, there was a noticeable improvement from the last book. There were more descriptions beyond just sight. This time the novel also included feeling, hearing, and temperature, which really helped bring the scenery to life. The only issue I had is where the chapters started and ended. A majority of them began with Asphalt waking up and ended with him going to sleep. This wasn't all bad, but it would have been better to have some variety. Another positive thought was that I adored the attention to that Asphalt used more of his sight and hearing to portray certain details, as his sense of smell was poor due to being an owl. It was a fantastic way to add more to his character's point of view. Since the book took place in a new kingdom, there was plenty of world building. Though the cast mostly remained in the castle, Asphalt and Willow did take a trip to some of the outer towns and even stayed at an inn. It not only allowed the characters to get a greater scope of the situation and see just how many animals the war would impact, but it also made the kingdom feel more lived in. However, even with Asphalt staying in the palace for the majority of the story, there was still an abundance to explore. Asphalt not only toured the main hallways of the castle, but also the throne room, gardens, council rooms, and more. It made it so the setting didn't become overused, which I thought was great. This time, Asphalt was the main focus of the book. I was fond of his character having a different voice than Willow, which isn't easy to write. Asphalt came across as trying to be a more logical and more unwilling to express his true emotions and feelings. He also seemed a bit neurotic in that Asphalt was constantly worried about what other animals thought of him, along with being highly self-critical. This also helped him have a distinct voice from Willow. Despite him being presented as the brains of the group, Asphalt did make some poor choices, especially ones involving the Queen. For example, Asphalt wanted to stop the war by having both sides negotiate a peace treaty. However, besides working on the murder mystery, the owl did little to win over the Queen or other council members. It was understandable that Asphalt hated the way the situation was now, but no one was going to ever consider his idea if they saw him as an outsider or a troublemaker. Regardless, I did like the scenes where Asphalt was looking into a couple of questions he had involving conspiracies. It was a decent way to bring the main focus back to stopping the war. I do have more issues with how it continued from there, but I'll tackle those in the spoiler section. I wish that Pyrite had gotten more focus since she was new. She was okay at the start, given that she was willing to help Asphalt out in order to save him from execution. As one of the major players on the council, she also had a good position of power to be used as leverage. As the book went on though, little else was divulged about her. Sure, Pyrite revealed that the Queen favored her, which had ended up with Pyrite getting her status through sheer luck. Pyrite did explain a fear later in the book, but that was all. It would have been nice to discover what her dreams were, along with other details such as hobbies, quirks, and background. One of the ways this could be accomplished may have been Asphalt making the journey out of the capital with Pyrite instead of Willow. Perhaps they could have talked about Pyrite's past or any ambition. All that aside, Pyrite does have potential. Her grumpy and mysterious attitude was a fun dynamic when she interacted with others. Wherever the series goes, I can't wait to see more of her. Though she didn't get too much page time, Hazel was decent. She was welcoming to the crew and easily got onto the good side of the queen. That, along with being very social at a party. The biggest setback, however, was that Hazel wasn't fleshed out. It was a similar situation to Pyrites, in that she didn't get too much interaction with Asphalt until the end of the book. Since Hazel was a main suspect in the case, it was a good opportunity for Asphalt to interview her, which could lead to getting to know Hazel more personally as a character. It would also assist Asphalt in collecting more evidence, and Hazel might have given him access to more resources. Missed opportunity aside though, it was wonderful how Hazel's personality heavily contrasted with Willow's. Unlike her brother, Hazel was more confident and willing to speak her mind. She also seemed to have a temper on her too, which was a good flaw. Unsurprisingly, Queen Cassiopeia was one of the main antagonists in the story. From the get-go, she presented herself as rash and violent, willing to kill animals that she felt were no longer of use to her. Plus, she was cruel to her husband, Perseus, for no known reason and viewed him as weak. All of this is why I was surprised when it was revealed that Queen Cassiopeia was a popular ruler. From her actions, it seemed like she would be the exact opposite. Sure, she was aggressive in the war in order to hopefully win, but was doing so at the cost of both her soldiers and the well-being of her citizens. So why did her subjects adore her? All in all, Queen Cassiopeia had plenty of character and was fun to dislike. I could tell that the author had fun while writing her. Some of it didn't quite fit together, but it was passable. Alright, now onto the spoilers. I'll count to 3 seconds if you want to keep this book spoiler free. 1, 2, 3. And here we go. Marula wasn't in this book a lot, but she still did contribute. It was a relief when she stole the key to Oakrose back from the queen and fled the castle. The hyena even made it as far as going into the forest, away from the kingdom, after leaving the key in Willow's paws. Willow also didn't really play a major role, but that was okay. His arc felt like it had wrapped up in book 1, so his story was essentially already finished. I thought the road trip with Asphalt, along with Willow sheltering Marula, was a good touch though. Hazel being the killer, along with the king, may have been a good turn of events had it not been revealed halfway through. Perseus is found out to be the killer through a brief and sudden conversation with the kitchen staff. Afterwards, Asphalt overhears a conversation between Hazel and Pyrite. This results in him believing that Hazel is a second killer with very little evidence. It would have been nice to have Asphalt be wrong, but he's just so sure of himself that it feels like the mystery element got spoiled. Another annoyance was how there was little foreshadowing leading up to the fact that there were 2 killers. The supposed other twist near the middle of the novel was confusing. Asphalt discovered a metal tablet that had top secret information. It documented that the kingdoms were after the immortality pills and that the war had been manufactured for benefits to the upper class. Asphalt then thought about how he had heard rumors about the war being a front, but as far as I can recall, that had never been mentioned before. Asphalt was also shocked to learn about the existence of the pills, but I remember that it had been covered by the previous book. It was all very jumbled. There was also Asphalt's plan to dethrone Hazel, which struck me as odd. Instead of showing evidence against her, The owl graffitied the palace walls, stating that the government was hiding evidence and that Hazel was a killer. And even though the citizens of the kingdom had all heard similar propaganda before, they somehow believed him. Why? Asphalt didn't even present the metal tablet to the crowd, so what made his speech so special as to change the animals' minds? Finally, the ending of the book was solid. After escaping from the dungeon, Asphalt, Willow, Hazel, and Pyrite decided to flee the kingdom. They journeyed to the mountains where their metal tablet was hidden in order to stop the war at long last. It was a good way to set up the potential for the next installment and wrap up everything in that particular kingdom. Overall, I give this book 3 out of 5 stars. It was rocky in several places, especially near the end, but the story was clearly written with plenty of heart. I did enjoy how Asphalt had such a unique voice, and that the new characters were all quite fun. I only wish that some of them had stuck around longer or had gotten expanded upon. I hope Xena will keep improving her craft and wish her the best of luck on her writing journey.